Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are listening to this in whatever time zone, and we welcome you to today's webinar, Smart Integration Technology for SAP. My name is Glenn Johnson. I'm a Senior Vice President here at Magic Software Enterprises Americas, and I'm joined today by Senior Consultant Or Gott. Welcome, Or. And welcome to each of you.
Again.
Yeah, hi, Or. And welcome to each of you for being on today's webinar. We appreciate your joining us and hope that you will feel free to participate by sending us questions, and we'd be happy to answer those. You can send those questions by typing them into the Q&A box or the chat box. If you prefer to send them privately to the host and presenter, you may do that as well, and we'll be happy to try to get to those questions. Our discussion topic today is Smart Integration Technology for SAP. This is a topic which is of great interest, of course, to businesses running SAP that are looking for smarter, more effective ways to connect the systems, enterprise systems within their application portfolio to one another in order to engage in business process reengineering, in order to control the costs of IT integration, and generally to achieve the results for smooth running business processes that are important to the enterprise and to the enterprise business goals. Magic Software has been an SAP Gold partner for something like a decade now, and we are also pleased to have SAP certified integration, so that the solutions that we're talking to you about today are utilizing approved methodologies, and we'll talk specifically about what some of those are. Magic Software is a company that's been in business for over 30 years. We have a wealth of experience in building software and particularly integrating enterprise applications, utilizing a technology base that is very efficient and yet extremely scalable. The innovation that has gone into the Magic XPI integration platform, which we'll show in our demonstration later today, is something that is the culmination of literally hundreds, if not thousands, of years of research and development efforts that go into the development of these products. And the overriding value that we tend to provide is to service the business needs of the organization by providing IT solutions that leverage your existing investment, that get more out of what you already have in place today, that provide a pathway for forward migration with minimal disruption now and in the future. And these are the kinds of values that we bring towards these projects. So let's go ahead and get right in to our discussion. Perhaps beginning on a humorous note, I enjoyed this Geek and Poke strip where they said, you know, one guy says, SOA, SCA, ESB, EDA, ESA, BLI, blah, blah, and the other one says, great, and what about the ROI? And he responds, don't bother me with buzzwords. You know, the technologies are absolutely important because that's the way the things get done. It eventually comes down to the details of the bits and bytes, and the methods either work or they don't. Some work better than others, but generally speaking, that's what today's webinar is about, is the technology. However, we want to emphasize that we do so in the context of the understanding that IT is serving the business needs of the organization, and that we understand that the alignment of that technology with the needs of the organization is something that is constantly being evaluated and examined. And so we hope that in offering the kinds of innovative solutions that we're talking about in today's webinar, you'll find some pathways towards solving problems that you may have in your integration environment, and also towards creating more efficient business processes that are actually returning value to the organization in fairly demonstrable ways fairly quickly. So one of the things that we see are people are still engaged in point-to-point integration efforts as sort of their alternative way around expensive middleware solutions. And so when they find themselves integrating SAP to non-SAP, sometimes they resort to programming because they don't want to pay the licensing fees and transaction fees that go along with NetWeaver integration or some other type of solution. There's great danger in that. The point-to-point integration creates a lot of code to be maintained, and you can think about it in terms of thinking of the number of endpoints. If you're writing point-to-point integration between each enterprise system in your environment, let's say you have 10 important enterprise systems, that becomes 45 point-to-point connections that are needed if you're integrating all those to one another. Now, we realize that some don't need to talk to one another, and you probably have a lot more than 10 systems in your environment. So this is just the purpose of that exponential illustration there is not to say that's the exact number that you're going to need, 10 systems equals 45, but rather to suggest that it gets out of control pretty quickly, regardless of what that exact number is in your organization. And some of you may know, how many of these integrations you're maintaining. But in a lot of organizations, people have lost track, and the cost of maintaining that, particularly as systems are being upgraded, as operating systems are changing, databases are being advanced, and so on, is particularly costly to an IT organization to continue to maintain all of that going forward. So middleware solutions that are platform-based, that provide a methodology for preserving future value and reducing the amount of time that's required to maintain integration to either 0 or near 0, have extreme value to IT organizations. I suspect that that's what's motivating many of you to be here, to figure out how to solve a specific problem, integrate this to that, but also, how can we save money in the process and have it as pain-free as possible. So one of the principles that goes into this then is loosely coupled integration. One of the things that makes integration smart integration is the idea that it isn't point-to-point, but rather it's loosely coupled. So you might have an ERP system like SAP, for example, and you might even have third-party add-ons or extensions that you're using with SAP or other SAP modules, and those would be pretty tightly coupled. A finance or a forecasting module is probably directly integrated into ERP without going through NetWeaver or some other intermediary system, and those can be fine. But once you start integrating your SAP system to the other enterprise systems, the e-commerce platforms, the product lifecycle management systems, the customer relationship management systems, the supply chain management systems, the logistics systems, and 3PLs and all that, and then the human resources systems, and on and on and on, trying to maintain that type of integration without loose coupling, as we said, is very difficult. And loose coupling is simply a principle which allows you to objectify the integration in such a way that you can take a componentized-based approach, which means that when one side of your integration transformation is changing, the other side doesn't need to change. It can continue to use its same components or objects, and you simply work with the update to one half of the equation. This loose coupling makes it possible to move forward much more quickly. And when an API is designed in such a way that it can survive version changes, then you have an even greater and more powerful solution, because it's likely that there's little to no change at all required as you're forward migrating, largely thanks to this smart approach that you can take through an integration platform. Now, the architecture might be described as hub and spoke in some instances, but it doesn't have to be hub and spoke. You can also arrange an integration platform like the Magic XPI integration platform in such a way that it's serving as a bus architecture. And the difference there being basically that the applications are calling services of one another versus calling services to a centralized hub and spoke kind of orchestration. But in either case, the bus that's serving that is essentially an integration environment of some kind. So that's an interesting type of architecture, but we would suggest that it's usually only a partial solution, particularly when you start looking at the need to be in the cloud and on-premise in various environments. The hub and spoke model is usually in a hybrid relationship with a bus architecture, so that you sort of have the best of both worlds in dealing with both cloud and on-premise types of integration. Now, in order to really make those kinds of judgments, of course, you really have to assess your application portfolio. You have to look at the systems that you have in place, not only SAP and the various modules that you might have, whether those be, ERP modules and financial, or if you're going into other systems, CRM and human resources and so forth. But also looking at those third-party software systems you might have, or in-house proprietary systems that you may have developed for operational systems, manufacturing, human resources, customer relationship management, supply chain, logistics, PLM, e-commerce, even things like email, productivity, collaboration software, such as SharePoint, and on and on. These types of systems all tend to touch business processes that are vital to the organization. And so analyzing those business processes in such a way that we can identify those touch points or those integration points allows us to identify areas where we can do a number of things. We can improve the process, we can accelerate the process, and we can manage exceptions or errors in the process. And an integration platform delivers a lot of value to an organization when you start to do this kind of analysis, assessing your portfolio, those touch points, and evaluating those processes through usually, use case type of analysis, swim lane diagrams, and other kinds of ways of looking at what's going on organizationally in terms of processes and transactions and so forth that are taking place. The considerations that go into that kind of integration thought then are things like, is there a user waiting for the result of this business process, or is this a background processing event that needs to take place? Is it simply a request to view information, an information request, or are we actually processing a transaction here? Should it be taking place synchronously or asynchronously? In synchronous scenario, you actually have a live connection being maintained until resolution, versus asynchronous, where there are bursts of communication in either direction, and you kind of have these various sorts of scenarios, messaging type scenarios, acknowledge and reply, and so on. And also the question of whether the process is short-lived or long-running. A long-running process might be waiting for an approval, for example, from on a purchase order or something of that nature. Whereas a short-lived process could be while that user is sitting at the screen and you have a series of asynchronous communications taking place very quickly, and then the user is getting their result and moving on. So other considerations, the geographic span of your integration environment. Do you have a single data center to multiple data centers in various locations? Are there cloud-based applications and so on? Are you in need of redesigning those business processes? You might as well, while you are working on your integration, think about those improvements to the process. The fact that you're changing the integration technology means that you're going to be able to accelerate things that were manual before, or accelerate things that were batch into near real-time processes, perhaps, that type of thing. Be careful with scope. You don't want to try to solve everything at once. If you can limit the business functions that you're working on, projects become much more manageable, and you get quick wins, you get positive feedback from both your IT colleagues and the users, and you're going to find that you can do a lot more in these short bursts that bring successful integration to specific processes, rather than trying to identify a single project which involves hundreds of business processes all at once, and launching all at once. It's better probably to deal with those incrementally. At any rate, as you approach that, of course, you're going to be doing a gap analysis, looking at what APIs you have available to you from your enterprise systems, what middleware you have available to handle those APIs, and what staffing and resources you have in order to work with the middleware and APIs that you have. And if there's a gap, maybe you don't have a way into a particular application, you need to fill that gap, and you don't have the middleware that's required, you need to look at getting the proper middleware in place. An integration platform, of course, is what Magic is going to recommend to you. But there are options, and we understand that you're evaluating those options, and we welcome that. Now, when you're working with enterprise APIs, obviously most cloud-based SaaS applications are going to employ APIs that are based on SOAP or RESTful web services. A lot of older versions of enterprise software systems might be using APIs such as BAPI-based APIs, or IDOCs and RFCs and this kind of thing. That's totally normal and to be expected in terms of the types of integration that are taking place. But it might also be web services based. It just depends on the versions that you're utilizing. And sometimes it gets down to the specific tables that you need to access or business processes that you need to affect, whether or not you're utilizing a web service or some other type of integration scenario. Now, Magic, as we mentioned, has SAP certified integration. Our capabilities for SAP integration allow us to work with both NetWeaver and non-NetWeaver scenarios. So we can work with the BAPIs, the ABAPs, the IDOCs, and so on. We can do ALE inbound and outbound via transactional RFCs, for example, simple or complex. Web services, starting with NetWeaver 6.4, obviously, since ECC 5. And then NetWeaver XI and PI based interactions on the HTTP protocol or web services. SAP BWBI with, I warned you about all of these buzzwords, ODBO, OLAP, BAPI, XML for analysis, which is XMLA. These are supported, as well as ABAP connectors and batch input connectors. We have certified Unicode support as well for those of you that are working in multiple language character sets and have concerns there. And it's also certified for complicated mapping. So this is a rather extensive and broad set, obviously, of integration capabilities for your various SAP environments that you might actually have in place. And so we're excited to be offering that to our customers and to the marketplace. Now, what does an integration platform need to operate with SAP? The list of things that I just mentioned on the prior slide, yes, of course, but also you need to have that be a part of a usable environment, a studio, for example, that we'll be showing you in the demonstration, that gives you the ability to do things like publish and subscribe web services, to transport and transform XML, to composite application logic from Java or .NET or COM objects, that type of thing, to be able to monitor directories and deal with this basic simple text files. A lot of the proprietary things that have been developed have a lot of flat files involved in them, and that's important to have really robust and effective methods for dealing with those quite easily. And then, of course, you want to be able to visualize the business process, so you need business process modeling. You want to visualize the execution of that business process through business process orchestration, real-time, asynchronous, scheduled, visual data mapping and transformation, business process monitoring. So we'll be showing you all of that. And then, of course, you want to do so in utilizing security standards such as encryption and decryption. You want to do so with a highly scalable environment, incorporating in-memory computing techniques, and, of course, be compliant with SOA initiatives so that you can consume and expose web services of various kinds. And also, in today's environment, it's very important to have that ability to not only integrate enterprise software systems that are server-based, but to be able to integrate the mobile clients and the various client applications that you have, and to be able to even create client applications for steps in a business process, where you might have a mobile PO approval process, for example. You need an app for that, and you need to be able to deploy that app on iOS and Android and BlackBerry and Windows. One of the great things about Magic's technology is that we span all of these capabilities, of course, that we've just mentioned. Amazing that the list of things I say you need, we happen to have. There's no surprise there, I suppose. But it's, I think, an impressive list and an important place to begin when determining requirements. We talked about in-memory computing. We're quite excited about the in-memory computing capabilities of the Magic XPI integration platform, in that it provides dynamic scaling, co-location, right behind capabilities. And by that, we're really talking about co-location, meaning that you have the co-location of memory and processing. So you have a grid, if you will. You want to visualize it in your mind as a grid of various areas of memory and various dedicated processors or threads that are serving up integration capability and messaging and so on. And so these various spaces are highly scalable because of the fact that if you need more, you simply add more power to them. And they also provide a redundancy, which can be quite important. Now, with the in-memory, you're also gaining the advantage of being able to utilize right behind for the data tier. So what that means is, if you look at a traditional architecture with hard disk as the final step of the transaction, writing to the SQL database, this is problematic because writing to SQL databases on hard disks takes time. And it takes a significant amount of the overall transaction time to do the physical final step. When you utilize an in-memory computing technique, you actually have the highest level of confidence in that dynamic memory. It's so much faster that you can actually trim the transaction period to what's happening in memory and view the recording to the database as an archival step for persistency purposes, but not a part of the transaction waiting time. And as a result, you're queuing and executing those processes at a much faster rate by utilizing this principle of right behind as part of an in-memory computing approach. We do that in the Magic XPI integration platform so that you have the most scalable integration environment possible to deal with the highest level of enterprise requirements for transactions to be integrated. This kind of dynamic scaling that I'm describing means that you have both performance, as we've been discussing, for that linear scale, through that linear scalability, but then you also have high availability through redundancy, so that if one process or space fails, there are multiple spaces available to take over and keep things moving forward and to provide for that high availability that you're looking for. Security is another really important area for a discussion, and we support security in Magic XPI through support of user authentication principles, through support of user rights principles that are present in your systems, and also, very importantly, through encryption, the ciphering process of encrypting and decrypting through any of a variety of different techniques. And if you care to get into it, we have a white paper on this subject that compares the performance overhead of these various techniques to their level of security, so that you can kind of decide which one is best for your situation and organization. The security risks involved and the degree to which one is expected to encrypt is going to vary depending upon the situation. Are we talking about normal business transactions, or are we talking about something that's much more likely to be under attack, and basically people are actively trying to decrypt all the time and that kind of thing? Then you want it to be a little bit harder, obviously. So that's going to have an overhead effect but fortunately a lot of that's made up because of the new advances in things like in-memory computing. And then finally, you want an audit trail. So one of the great things about the Magic XPI integration platform is that the integration monitor provides you with logging capabilities so that you can have each of the steps of the integration process logged and recorded. You can even have attachments to that, and those attachments would contain the actual data that was being transacted back and forth through the integration process. That's powerful because if somebody comes in and does an audit and has record retention requirements and says, where did this information come from, how did it get here, where did it go, all of those kinds of questions, you have the answers with the date and timestamps, with the IP addresses and all of the kind of information you need in order to prove what had actually happened. And you can just archive away on all of that log information so that you have those records waiting if you need them at any time. They can also be useful, those logs can be useful in the debugging process of your actual business process design for an integration scenario, because you can actually see step by step exactly how the information was transiting through the system. You can detect error conditions through monitors and other kinds of valuable things as well. So Magic is going to provide you with basically two kinds of solutions. One is an integration platform that we're talking about here primarily today. The other is our application platform that provides the mobile clients that we mentioned, for example, the ability to develop a simple app, deploy it on a mobile device across multiple mobile devices, and have your users interacting with the business process, and then integrate that through XPI to the back end. So they kind of work together. They're both metadata driven in that you have this really powerful way to leverage the capabilities of the platform so you don't have to write everything from scratch. There's no line-by-line coding involved. There are expressions through an expression editor that are common to both platforms, so you don't have to learn two different things. And they're also, the syntax of those is actually very familiar to most of you because of the similarities to things like SQL databases and so on. So we provide this one-stack technology today. We'll be showing it in our demonstration, and the integration platform itself has a number of adapters and components that we can show. We'll actually be talking about SAP obviously today, and the power of the component library is that it's not only has application adapters, but it also has technology adapters so that you can deal with things like messaging middleware, you can deal with HTTP and other communication protocols, FTP and so on, flat files databases, and SNMP, you name it. There's just a variety of these technology adapters that give you that ability to work with almost any application, unless that application was literally designed to be a encrypted, hardened black box, and then we can't promise anything. But if it was open in any way, even at the database level perhaps, but ideally through an API, then absolutely the tools are here for you to be able to integrate and transact with those other enterprise apps. The integration with mobile, as we mentioned, gives you this, develop once, deploy many kind of scenario, integrate from various back-end systems through the Magic XPA app platform and the XPI integration platform. So at this point, what I'd like to do is actually share my desktop here, or actually change the presenter to Orr so that he can share his desktop so we can see the demonstration that he's prepared for us today. So Orr, you now have the con, and we're looking forward to the demonstration that you're going to share with us today. I now see a blue screen, so I think that means you've got control.
Yeah, that's me. So,
right.
Hi everyone. My name is Orr. I'm a senior consultant here at Magic in the US, mostly dealing with our Magic XPI integration platform. writing projects for customers, helping customers who are developing and deploying their own projects. As I'll show you in a minute, Magic XPI is a development platform for integration. So once you own the platform, even if you bought it for a single project, like a single need of integration to SAP, it's very easy to use and easily scalable to run multiple projects for the same environment or for different environments. So for today's demonstration, what I wanted to show you is how Magic XPI is used for integration in general, but specifically for integration into SAP. For a good scenario of integration into SAP, I took a scenario that a lot of our customers are using. For example, SAP is my ERP. It's a big system. Many different applications might need to have some kind of interface into SAP, either to get data out of SAP, push data into SAP. So I took a scenario that basically a lot of people are using, which is a CRM to ERP integration. Customers are usually handled in a CRM system, and only when the information in the CRM system is relevant to my ERP, meaning SAP at this point, the data should flow between the two systems, just because I don't want to type everything twice. Of course, if I create an account and I have a CRM, I have Salesforce, for example, which is probably the most widely used CRM system in the world. So I have Salesforce, I type an account in there, I create a new account in Salesforce. The information, of course, can be typed into SAP just the same. But the idea is to have something connecting my CRM to my ERP systems that's constantly running, constantly in the background, and basically syncing information that's relevant between my CRM and my ERP, SAP. I'll stop saying ERP, I'll start saying SAP just so that we know we talk about SAP, but it can be any type of ERP, of course. And that's integration in general. Basically a platform that sits in between systems and passes the information between the systems depending on different business processes and scenarios that are relevant for what you need to do. I was mentioning briefly that data, of course, can come out of SAP into a system or from another system into SAP. That's not something to think lightly of. It's important to separate the two. It's very easy to read data out of SAP. Why? Because SAP basically just sits on a database. The data in SAP eventually is stored in some database, and there are a lot of tools out there. You can simply select data, ETL type of tool, get data out of a database, sort the records that I need, and then insert them into another application. But when I insert data into an application like SAP, I don't want to go through the database. I don't want to write into a table. There's a reason. As I was saying, SAP is an ERP. It's a big system, a lot of functionality in it. For example, if I want to change a price for an item, or if I want to do something simple in SAP, I don't just go to the items table and change the price of an item. I need to see who are the customers that are assigned a special price for that item. There's a lot of logic that needs to be executed if I want to change a price for an item. Now that logic is already written. Okay? You can change a price of an item from the SAP UI. Log into SAP, to the user interface of SAP, change a price of an item, and that's it. I want to have the capability of using the same functionality. Someone already wrote it. This is SAP. Someone already wrote the functionality for doing those operations. I want to use the same functionality. That's why we use APIs. That's what we use applications functionality to change, to insert data, to delete data, or to change data in SAP. I can, of course, use the same. I do use the same type of APIs when I query, but I can query through the database just the same. I'll show you briefly how we do that in Magic as well. So with that in mind, let's show the demo. Let's create a new account in SAP. Salesforce, sorry. Just someone very generic, and a bare minimum amount of information just to show you something. 25 4 254 Lala Street. I already have Lala somewhere street in SAP is in Germany. Let's make it Berlin. Let's make it 77884, and let's make it Germany. And let's make the bill to into the ship to. Just bare minimum amount of information. I'm creating a new account. Now this account can be created by a salesperson once he talks to someone and he wants to create an opportunity for that account in Salesforce. Now all that information is relevant only for my CRM. Okay, this is Salesforce, but it can be whatever type of CRM or whatever type of application you're holding data in. And that's it. You saved it. Now integration kicks in. Now there is a process that should be running in the background if I have a proper integration platform, reads those records out of whatever system I wrote them in, and pushes them into SAP. Or the other way around, if I create the same object in SAP, I want to read it out of SAP and push it into Salesforce. Now, of course, I can do that, but as I was mentioning, that's a bit easier. I wanted to show you the tricky stuff. I wanted to show you that information can be inserted into SAP, and I'll show you how. So basically, as I was saying, there's an integration platform running in the background, reading records that have not yet been created in SAP, creating them in SAP. And as you can see, I have like a field here called external ID. I expect this field to be populated. Let me see if SAP, okay, yeah, I just want to see that the server is not logged off yet. This is my SAP server. Eventually what I expect is to find that object. I need to log in again. Sorry about that. Is to see that object in SAP as a business partner eventually. So go into business partners and to be able to query. Now how do I do that? If I click F5 on the screen now, because I know the integration was already running, record should have been picked up and created in SAP. And if it's created in SAP, I can see an ID back in my system and show you the ID. I'll do it quickly again. I apologize. Back into accounts. Probably was logged off way too long. Let's create a new one. Account name Aviron SD. Something unique. I might have used a ununique name and probably didn't check this. Let's give it a phone, 555-134. What else might be mandatory? Billing Street, 16 Berlin. Nothing here. Zip 55544. That's good. Germany. Copy, build to ship to, and save. And again, there's a system that should pick it up in the background. Now, I was talking for the system to pick up the record. Now, there are multiple types of integration. Integration can be real-time integration, meaning once the record is created, it'll take, I don't know, between 5 and 20 seconds for that record to be integrated into SAP. There are data syncs between two systems that can run nightly. For example, I just want to run sync on inventory data every midnight, and I'll show you how that is done in Magic XPI. While I'm waiting for the sync to run, it ran 301.358. Let me take you here. 301.358. Sorry. 301.358. And see that Aviron with the address and all the information regarding that customer was created in SAP because it's now relevant for SAP. I forgot to check the SAP box in the beginning of the demo, I'm sorry. Back to my demonstration. Now, something went wrong. That's a good thing. I can show you what happens when something goes wrong. what happens when something goes wrong during an integration? An integration is a process that is running in the background. No one logged into the integration and said, go ahead, integration, start working. No one clicked a button in a unique way for the integration to work. People were using Salesforce, people are using SAP. They're using them in the way that they're accustomed to use them. Only the data should be synced. How do I know what happened? Glenn mentioned that at the end of his part of the of today's webinar, we have a way to monitor everything that goes on in our integration project. We have a monitor, which is what you see here, which basically holds a list of all my projects on my server. And as you can see, I can have multiple projects. The green one is the one that's running. And if I open it, I can basically see transaction by transaction exactly what happened when something was started, when a customer insert has begun, when a customer insert has logged or has completed. It took 6 seconds to insert the record into SAP, and the entire flow ran in just a little bit over 7 seconds. I can add user-defined messages. Salesforce ID is something just to see the object again. I can add an attachment, which would be, for example, the XML that we created for SAP, or the XML that we got back as a response from Salesforce. All that, this is, by the way, the XML we got back out of SAP, the information. All that information, we have the capability of monitoring because integration is something that's running 24/7 and in the background, and we should have a way of understanding what the integration was doing. So there is a full way of monitoring. Of course, the monitor gives you the capability of digging down into a specific business process or a flow. I'll show you what business process or flow means. You can view just errors or filter based on dates or specific messages just to see exactly what happened. So this led me to, this is what I did. When something wasn't going right, I looked at the monitor, I saw that data source didn't exist, meaning I probably logged off the system and needed just to log in back to see it, or I was missing a field. So I just did both of them and it kept on running. So that's it. We're building integration between systems into SAP or out of SAP based on a set of rules. As long as I didn't have this flag demo system sync into R3 in Salesforce, the data didn't go into R3. Why? Because this is my demo server. I do a lot of demos here. I can sync to multiple systems because, as I was saying, we work with multiple ERP systems. Enterprise One, which is JD World, SAP R3, SAP Business One, and others. So there are basically what I want to show you out of this is there are sets of rules to the integration. There's a logic to the integration. There's a workflow to the integration. First, someone needs to create something in Salesforce, for example. If it created something in Salesforce, only if the information is relevant for the integration should I pick it up. I don't want to pick it up over and over again, create multiple records over and over again, so I can have like a sync flag here, which is also something that I can do. This is a simple way of following a set of rules for the integration. How do we do that in Magic? Very easily, because this is the Magic Studio. This is where I develop. This is the actual project that's currently running in the background, integrating Salesforce to SAP. And it has a visual approach, a Visio approach. Let's set rules, and let's have data flow from top to bottom based on those rules, and only if those rules are met should the integration run. For example, get new accounts from Salesforce. I don't want to get all the accounts. I only want to get accounts that are, I don't know, from the last 24 hours maybe, and that haven't been synced yet, and that are with the R3 flag checked. If I get a success, continue. If not, stop. Say I got success, loop on all the accounts that you got, and call a sub-process that will sync them into SAP. Now, as you see, it's a visual approach. It's a drag, drop, and configure methodology of development. I want to add a step that would send an email after something was inserted into SAP. I will take something like an email step, and I will put it under SAP, and I will click OK. Now it's a drag, drop, and configure. I need to configure the email step to do what I want. Code-free environment. Just click configure and say I want to send I want to do a quick send, just to send an email to admin of my system at mail.com, for example, that new account created in SAP. And I can add a body, and the body can be in an HTML format or just plain text, and so on. So this is how we develop. This is how we add steps. This is the same. I'll show you the SAP step in a minute. This is the count drill. This is what I'm talking about now. But I want to show you the visual approach. Say this email should only be sent out if everything was okay. If the customer was indeed created, there were no errors. So we add a condition to a step saying only if error code equals 0, for example. Okay, and we can verify and see that the expression is valid or not valid, and we can do this to make it valid, and that's it. Basically, write a set of rules to accommodate what we need to do in an integration platform, in an integration project. Now, how do we integrate into SAP? We integrate using the same way we did the email step. I want to do an SAP step. Then I will take an SAP step, drag it and drop it, and again just click configure. The Magic XPI is adapter for SAP is built around one of the SAP APIs, which is the JCO API of SAP, a Java connector provided by SAP, and it lets you do IDOFs and RFCs. It lets you do, of course, each of them has a different configuration screen. What is it that you want to do? Do you want to get the transaction ID back out, yes or no? All you have to do when you want to call a function, and I was saying before, when you integrate into an application, you use the application functionality. So all you have to do is know the function name, pass the correct parameters, and that's it. Let's look at a step that's already configured, like this SAP step. I wanted to create a new customer, so I used an RFC program. And this is the RFC group, this is the RFC name, it's a BAPI, customer create from metadata. Okay? And click OK. Now Magic basically goes in the background, fetches a description of that function, and opens this screen. This screen is what Magic is all about, source to destination integration. Source is the XML coming out of Salesforce, which is what we already have out of Salesforce from the previous step. SAP is an object that we just defined, this specific RFC, this specific program that I want to call, function that I want to call. And now when I click map, I can see that on the right side, I get kind of like a schema, a description of a function of the BAPI customer create from data1 function in SAP. I didn't have to do anything. Magic went and fetched that function for me with all the nodes on that function. Now I can map into those nodes. I can call that function. Based on what? Based on data coming from Salesforce. Magic went and fetched the description of my Salesforce object, just the same as I did with SAP. I know this is not a Salesforce webinar, but just to show you. And it grabbed everything out of Salesforce, and now I can, in order to connect source to destination application, I just take a line, connect, and that's it. Source to destination integration, read from one application, push to another application. This is what Glenn was talking about, and that's it. The information goes into SAP. Now you call a function and create an object in SAP. Now this is using standard functionality. No one would just run a program that all it does was to call a function and pass the parameters. You need to have the capability of manipulating parameters sometimes. Why? Because data is not always in the same format between the two applications. For example, name in Salesforce is just name. Name in SAP is first name, last name. So I can map name into first name and last name, and I can use out-of-the-box functions to get just the part of the name that I want. I use an str token to get the part of the name that I want. Or I can use a left-right function, or I can use, there are 600 or so functions. A list of functions is available, of course, here in a very easy to use expression editor, just if you want to manipulate the data between the two applications. And we do that quite often. Now, say, for example, you're a new developer and you don't know what the function is doing. Magic XPI is the good thing about Magic being around for about 20 years is that everything is documented and documented well. Just stand on a function, click F1, and you'll get a full description of a function with a description and how to use it and what are the parameters in, what are the parameters out, and what you can expect to see. Or if you don't know any of the functions, you can just go to functions and see a complete list of the functions, and for example scroll into one and read about the examples. So basically that's it. That's how you use Magic XPI for integration. You use a visual approach to integration. You drag, drop, and configure. You use out-of-the-box connectors built around application APIs in order to use the application's functionality for integration. Oh, I promised to show, so I'll just show briefly that we do have the capability of connecting directly to a database and fetching the information from there. It's very easy to do. Magic has native gateways to MS SQL, Oracle, DB2, or even pervasive SQL. And you can use any type of ODBC driver that you can find out there for whatever database you're using. And all you have to define is the connection parameters to that database. Once you do that, for example, MS SQL, and then you can use, in the same screen that I just showed you, let's go into SAP. For example, I can fetch information from multiple formats and types. XML came from Salesforce. I can get the data out of a database, as I was saying. And you can use a Magic XPI wizard to build your own SQL query. You can run any type of SQL query. It's a native gateway. Whatever works from another client will work from here. So if you have stored procedures or functions or whatever you want to use in your database, you can run directly from here. For example, select star from blah. Come on. Blah. Now this database of course doesn't exist, but you can write whatever function you query you want. Let's just use a wizard to fetch something really quick. Sorry, not filtered. Just grab a table, grab the columns, for example all of them, where if you want, I don't know, name equals Avi, next, finish, map. And that's it. Now I can map from another source, which is my database, into whatever application I want. So there's a full capability of fetching, and very easy. You saw it took me 5 seconds to get information out of a database. I was after showing you how we use functionality in SAP because it's harder to do. So that's it on the technical side. Back to you, Glenn. And I think unless
great, thank you, Or. Appreciate that, and we'll ask for any questions that folks might have. We've just got a couple of minutes left here, so if you have a question, please type it into the chat box or the question and answer box, and we'll be happy to answer that for you. First question is, do you have anything for IBM I AS400?
Yes. So for AS400, we have a native gateway. Just the same. I mean, this is connecting to MS SQL and fetching records out of MS SQL. You have the same capability of fetching directly from a database, a DB2 or DB2 400 database. On top of that, we have a System I adapter, which is kind of like an SAP adapter, which is based on technology, not on database connection. Let me take you there. So this is our System I connector. And this lets you call RPG programs, run queries, get stuff out of a queue, whatever it is that you want to do that's available on your System I.
Okay, great. And I don't see any other questions coming in at this point, so I want to thank everyone for joining us today, and thank you very much, Or, for your demonstration. That was very helpful. I'm sure that if people have further questions that they would like to know how to contact us, so I'll just give that information right now. You can send an email to info@magicsoftware.com, or if you prefer to give us a call, you can reach Magic Software at our California office at 949-250-1718. If you're outside of North America, then I would encourage you to visit our website at www.magicsoftware.com to check for the location of an office or distributor near you. Thanks again for joining us. We look forward to seeing you on another Magic Software webinar real soon.